Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
For too long, American Indian tribes have faced a competitive disadvantage when litigating against powerful forces. With its American Indian law and policy practice, Robbins Kaplan, LLP, seeks to redefine excellence for high-stakes litigation in Indian country. They have worked hand-in-hand with tribes to implement the Tribal Law and Order Act, fighting against diminishment of tribal lands and natural resources, and improving public safety on reservations. The Robbins Kaplan American Indian Law and Policy Practice serves tribes and individuals on commercial, government investigations, agency and tribal boundary disputes, as well as personal injury. Founded and led by former United States Attorneys Brendan Johnson and Tim Purdon, their American Indian Law and Policy Practice exists to bring justice to tribal clients whose claims in the past have been dismissed or ignored due to their underdog status. If you or your tribe are facing legal issues, contact robinskaplan.com or call toll-free at 1-800-553-9910.
Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Clear overnight and very cold, getting down to 9 below zero. Then Friday, sunshine and a high of 10. Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood bar and restaurant at 26th and Lyndale in the Whittier neighborhood. Check them out today at nightingalempls.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Cudahy to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. That is my colonized name. We discuss national, local, Twin City Native news and events, and as you know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Alliant Energy, powering beyond.
Well, we got a big show here. We got Winona LaDuke stopping in, and then we have Robert Lilligren talking about a lot of things that's happening around Minneapolis and the Twin Cities here in National, and then a little update with Wendy at the end about saving our wolves, our sacred animals. So it's a big show here. Let's lead off right away with Ogama with the news. Welcome, Ogama, with the news that you don't hear anywhere else. Teeny.
Hi, Anim Bonjour, everybody. I'm Ogamaganua. I'm a member of the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota. I've got some news for you here on Native Roots Radio. As always, I usually like to start with some things that are happening locally, but today I'm going to do it a little differently, just like I did yesterday, and let people know the Indigenous Futures Survey you need to take before January 31st, 2022. It is an important survey for you to take to make your voice heard. This is a Native-led survey. You can take the survey now until the 31st is this next Monday at indigenousfutures.org. Also, if you're looking for some great new Native American music, make sure you check out the Native American Music Awards. You can vote for your favorites in different categories at NAMA live.com. So that's a really great thing you can do. And then a couple of scholarship and grant opportunities. NativeArtsAndCultures.org is hosting a live scholarship, which is a $10,000 scholarship for Native artists in many different types of mediums. So make sure you check that out at NativeArtsAndCultures.org. And then also IHS scholarships for the 2022-2023 academic year are also open at ihs.gov/scholarships. They will give you all the details there. And just a reminder that you do have to submit everything electronically this year. They will not take anything by mail. So that's important too if you happen to be one of those warrior people who are going into healthcare despite the current pandemic. So coming up here in more local with the Stop Line 3 actions and what's happening right now, what we're looking at going into the future here is using what we learned in the Line 3 fight here in Minnesota to help shut down Line 5 in Wisconsin. So, excuse me, coming up tomorrow, January 27th, there's going to be an online event, Tips and Tricks for Testifying on Line 3, that is going to teach you the basics for how to testify against the Wisconsin DNR, against the Line 5 project at the Wisconsin DNR meeting, which is happening on February 2nd. And you can find that on the Wisconsin Sierra Club page as well. There is a one-stop action page there where you can submit your comments if you can't come on for the actual meeting. And again, I'll put that link up on Native Roots Radio, but you should be able to find it on Wisconsin Sierra Club. So that is something that you want to do if you're listening into Native Roots Radio in the Wisconsin and Michigan area. Despite calls by the Bad River of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and local residents for Enbridge to stop running the Line 5 pipeline through the Bad River watershed, Enbridge has still applied for permits to build a new segment of Line 5 through the watershed and crossing the Bad River, flowing north into Lake Superior. So this is almost a worse deal than what is happening in Minnesota, because this puts the Great Lakes in danger, which is a fifth of the world's fresh water. So this is very, very important for you if you're listening, if you are part of the Line 3 fight, or if you are in Wisconsin and you're new to this. Enbridge's Line 3 and Line 5 have not been safe projects, so make sure you're getting involved with that. In more national news, I guess this is kind of local and national, right, Robert? We talked a little bit last week, or earlier this week even, I think, with Bob Blake may have mentioned it. I can't recall, talking about the mining that might happen here in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. They're trying to say that mining is going to bring those precious metals like nickel and copper and those kinds of things to help build electric car batteries for Tesla. And they're trying to sell us on this mining project, saying that that's going to be so great. But Tesla was actually found guilty of union busting in late 2021, which I actually did not know. So I just wanted to make people aware. This article is from the UConn blog from last March. And in 2018, Tesla CEO Elon Musk wrote, "Nothing stopping the Tesla team at our car plant from voting union." But later on, he was found guilty, saying that Elon Musk had threatened workers and even fired one for union organizing. So considering that Tesla does have, I believe it is a factory on a Native American reservation in the Southwest. And, Tesla is a name that's being thrown around here in Minnesota as a way to get these mining projects through. I'm all for electric cars, but could could we maybe make some batteries out of hemp, like Winona says, Robert?
Yeah, definitely. That would really impress me. Not somebody that came from a rich family and is just utilizing his family's wealth to make more wealth under the backs of workers and non-union workers. So, yeah, angry over here.
Yeah, well, the other thing that surprises me about this is a lot of these companies like Tesla and other companies that are working to tap into this electric car movement are, instead of researching these new things like hemp batteries and other more sustainable ways to produce these, they are scouring the world to start these copper nickel mines all over the world. So, I mean, I'm just surprised with the massive amount of resources available at Musk's disposal, why he wouldn't be, the leader in the climate movement by making those kinds of things happen. But
or the unions.
or unions for that matter. Exactly. I mean, we could start small with unions, right?
Right.
So I'm confused over here, angry and confused, but I just wanted to make people aware of that. If you're hearing, oh, well, it's for electric cars and, that it's the lesser of two evils somehow, that this mining project in Tamarack, Minnesota might be somehow good, it's not. Another really awesome thing that's coming out is the launch of Ice Edge, which is a new film exploring indigenous knowledge and Western science to understand the Arctic sea ice that is depleting due to the climate crisis. So it's a documentary film about the co-production of knowledge that reveals the forces behind disappearing sea ice and effects on a specific native village in Northwest Alaska. They were having a special event for that today at 10:30 a.m. Alaska time, which was 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. But you can actually watch this on the Earth Institute's Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. It's called Ice Edge. And it's really this powerful documentary talking about how 5 years ago this village and the Inuit residents there had to combine with scientists and combine their knowledge and co-develop questions about what's going on and how do we adapt to this and how do cultures adapt to this. So it's really beautiful. Make sure you check that out if you get some time here. It's important to all of us. Sea ice is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Peony Gigi, we're going to have some news up next, some more news with Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth, and we're always pleased to have her stop in and give us her opinion. So that's excited to do that. And then Robert Lilligren, and then a little update with Wendy on sacred animals and our relatives that are sacred. You're listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this short break.
Stay with us.
If the statistics say that 1 in 3 Native women and 1 in 6 Native men have experienced sexual assault in their lifetime, it means our whole community is affected by sexual violence. 1 is too many. Don't stand by, stand up. Don't engage in acts of sexual violence, and shut down the dirty jokes, the gossip, the victim blaming and shaming. As a community, we can change the way we respond. Contact the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition to attend a workshop to learn more.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
Aho, relatives. My name is George McCauley, Umaha Nation. I'm a citizen of the Omaha Nation in Nebraska. As we head into wintertime, many of us will be back together indoors. It's important to make sure you receive your COVID booster shot. Older Americans are more at risk for complications for COVID-19. All 3 COVID vaccine boosters have been approved. Find a vaccine site by calling 651-304-9986 or go to vaccineconnector.mn.gov.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. It's a special broadcast live Sunday, January 30th at 6 p.m. on AM 950. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Listen live on Sunday at 6 p.m. or on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by MN350, a grassroots organization fighting for climate justice.
Well, Wendy, we're always really pleased and happy to have Winona LaDuke stop in and drop us off a segment. And so we're excited, right, Wendy, to listen to see what Winona has to say today.
As always, yes, absolutely.
So why don't we take a quick listen to Winona LaDuke of Honor the Earth.
Each week, hundreds of people are going to be arraigned in Hubbard County this month, basically for the crime of being a water protector. Most of those people are charged with misdemeanor trespass charges, but a few are even charged with theft. In this case, stealing time from Enbridge. Time thieves. That turns out to be a felony theft charge. Water protectors face over $3 million in fines, about the same as the state fine to Enbridge for busting a hole in the aquifer and destroying groundwater. This month, i.e. January, 300 defendants have court dates in Hubbard County alone, where officials used pain compliance, torture methods against peaceful demonstrators, and some of those now are facing permanent disabilities and up to 11 years in prison. That's for being a water protector. If this isn't a world gone mad, we really don't want to see it. One district court judge is considering a legal brief he requested on dismissing charges in the interest of justice. Let's hope that some kind of judicial reasoning prevails as hundreds of water protectors wait to be in court, some kind of a Zoom court in Hubbard County, Aiken County, Wadena County, or maybe Red Lake County. In the meantime, Enbridge is committing the crime of the century. The theft of water from King, our land, this land and this water, and the destruction of water. The 1-year anniversary of Enbridge's breach of the aquifer in Clearwater County is coming this week. After reportedly millions trying to stop the leak, that's what they spent. It's still gushing, anywhere from, actually they don't know, 100,000 to 1.2 million gallons or more of artesian water daily in the Mississippi Headwaters watershed. There are 2 other leaks that have been identified by the DNR, but despite many requests by the public and attorneys, we don't know where those other aquifer breaches are. In the meantime, there is no word yet about any subsequent prosecution or how $3.3 million in fines levied against Enbridge for the aquifer breaches actually being enforced. The good water's still pouring out after Enbridge violated its construction permit and drilled the bedrock 10 feet below their approved plan. In other words, that company violated its permit conditions. This same Enbridge company burned 28 rivers and nearby wetlands with fracking fluids and secured the single largest allocation of water in the history of the state. 5 billion gallons of water during the deepest drought we have seen in our lifetimes. It's really appalling, as is the fact that the company is backing its water trucks or backed its water trucks up to the Park Rapids City well and depleted more water so it could drill under the Shell River. That's just one of many incidents. 2021 was a hell of a year, all right? Enbridge, the foreign multinational, occupied and ransacked northern Minnesota to put in a tar sands pipeline at the end of the fossil fuel era. The funny thing is that there's the same amount of oil running through Enbridge lines this year as there was last year. In other words, turns out they didn't need that pipeline. But to get it through, they imported 4,300 workers, over 2/3 from out of state, and occupied the north, literally, in an occupation in 6 heavily militarized construction spreads facing water protectors to the front lines. There we stood peacefully. We sang, prayed, played piano. Hey, 7 people in a piano were arrested in Hubbard County last winter. We faced police, brutal temperatures, and increasingly violent arrests. This month is the anniversary of many of those arrests. In the siege in the militarized North in a pandemic, government officials from Minnesota bowed to a Canadian multinational and Line 3 was completed. As we watch the catastrophe of climate change unfold, we know that no one gets a tiara for this pipeline. In the meantime, most other pipeline projects have been canceled across the country as investors flee dirty tar sands oil of Alberta, and the destructive nature of pipelines becomes more and more apparent. The Jordan Cove pipeline, another Canadian pipeline, Keystone, another Canadian pipeline, were both canceled, as was the Constitution pipeline. They didn't get built. 2 of those pipelines, as I said, were Canadian. And that's what the country exports these days. Not a good health plan, but dirty oil and dirty oil pipelines. But it's finally the end of the party for the tar sands pipelines, even as Enbridge seems to have had the last hurrah. Enbridge has left Minnesota an illegal, immoral quagmire, walked all over tribal people, and has deepened divisions across the area. Although it's required by law to have a decommissioning plan prior to installing the pipeline, Enbridge doesn't have one. And sadly, Hubbard County, that county right next to our reservation, exemplifies what we often call the Deep North. The most arrests of any county were in Hubbard County, and still, on any given day, we'll just take any given day in December, 38% of the people in jail in Hubbard County, we call it the Hubbard Hilton, are Native. Native people comprise about 2% of the population of Hubbard County. That's a statistic you can only get in the Deep North. So like fellow water protectors, I got to wonder how come I've got criminal charges in Wadena County, in Hubbard County, and in Aiken County, and why the corporation committing the crime of the century, still poisoning our water, isn't considered an eco-terrorist and isn't facing criminal charges. They're a time fee for taking my time and natural resources for our future generations. But more than that, the company should face the deep criminal charge of ecocide, the destruction of ecosystems. Meanwhile, back in Park Rapids and Hubbard County, Enbridge sold off its office and moved back to Alberta to count profits. Me, myself, I'm going to stick around with the rest of the Anishinaabe and keep calling Minnesota and Hubbard County to task for selling out water, treaties, and civil rights of water protectors to a foreign interest. It's time to prosecute the real criminals. Miigwech. This is Winona LaDuke talking about the time thieves.
Well, we always appreciate Winona stopping in, Wendy, and doing this. It's powerful hearing from her, and she's been arrested twice. They're up there playing piano, getting arrested. It's really. And then one of the things I didn't know until she spoke today is that Enbridge's office said, I know there was a lot of protests are now gone. And I think you mentioned, Ogama, that there's no more, or maybe it was one of our past guests said that there's no more oil going through these pipelines than there were before. And tar sands, I should say.
Yeah, my understanding is that the pipelines project isn't actually pumping, the pipeline itself isn't pumping at a higher capacity, is my understanding, but I could be wrong. You can't necessarily quote me on that one. But, the point of what they were trying to say, the big point of what Enbridge was trying to say is that this project was going to bring all kinds of wealth to the Minnesota economy and all kinds of jobs. And it was supposed to be a 2-year project. They rushed it through in 9 months. And, here's Minnesota sitting with a broken aquifer that's been pumped full of concrete, 2 more aquifers that we don't know the status of, and having to fight our own government at the DNR and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to get anything done about it. Meanwhile, Enbridge is being allowed to go right next door to Wisconsin and Michigan, as well as down south in Texas, and just continue their reign of terror. It's blowing my mind.
Well, and the thing is, too, I know we talked a little bit about Tesla, but other things are going on in our community. The green revolution that Winona talks about, too, is happening, whether the government or the people that are getting bought off by Enbridge want to even acknowledge that in 10 years from now, there's going to be so much solar and wind energy. We won't need these nasty pipelines. And, that's the thing that I think not looking forward and looking short term is what has happened to Minnesota. We had all that water stolen from us during one of the biggest droughts that we've had in decades. And we're left here with that. And that's the nauseating thing about what's happens to our people. And I think what's the bright side is that we're speaking the truth. We have Winona LaDuke on. Wendy talks about our sacred animals and the attack on our sacred animals that are our relatives. You talk about the news, and I think we're blessed and gifted to be able to do this opportunity to amplify voices that aren't normally heard. And that's why I always kind of try and say that, this is news that you don't hear anywhere else when it comes to, what you were talking about, Ogama, with your news, and you don't hear that anywhere else. And that's for darn sure. So I don't know. Wendy, do you have any last thoughts before we switch off to break here?
I just wanted to let everybody know that there's a quick action alert, and it's happening tomorrow by 8 a.m. And we need the Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks will be holding an emergency hearing via Zoom regarding hunting quotas in the regions bordering Yellowstone. To date, 22 Yellowstone wolves have been slaughtered. We encourage Montana residents and Yellowstone tourists to register to comment before 8 a.m. tomorrow. The hearing will be held tomorrow at 1:30 in the afternoon. You could find this information on hashtag #relistwolves. What you could also do is go on Howling for Wolves talking points. Just Google that, and Howling for Wolves gives you a lot of information so that you could put in a Zoom comment about saving the wolves in Yellowstone Park.
I'm going to ask you to bring that up too at the end of our show too. We'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
Bonjour relatives, my name is Deanna Standing Cloud. I'm from the Red Lake Nation, and I live in Minneapolis today. As the weather gets colder, you're probably going to spend more time indoors, but it's important to stay safe and healthy. The COVID-19 pandemic is still not over, and now the flu season is upon us. So protect you and your loved ones by getting vaccinated against both the flu and COVID-19. COVID booster shots have now been approved for Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. And you're eligible if you're over 65 and if you're over 18 and have underlying health conditions or work in a high-risk setting. What's cool is your booster shot does not need to be of the same brand as your original series of shots. And you can receive a booster shot of any brand that's available to you. Children over the age of 5 are now eligible for a vaccine as well. So let's protect our relatives in Indian country this winter and get vaccinated. Be a vaccinative like me. Find a vaccination site by calling 651-304-9986 or visit vaccineconnector.mn.gov. Miigwech Bizendawian.
Don't let COVID spoil winter fun for your family. Get a vaccine or booster. COVID-19 vaccines are safe, effective, free for everyone, and are now available for anyone over the age of 5. Booster shots are also recommended for everyone 12 and older if it's been more than 5 months since your previous vaccination. To get more tips, schedule your vaccine, or get tested, visit ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine. That's ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine.
Hey, Wendy, what are we doing for dinner after the show?
How about we go to J. Selby's on 169 Victoria Street in St. Paul? They have a delicious plant-based menu that's compassionate and environmentally sustainable.
I'm getting their spot-on vegan Big Mac, the dirty secret.
You can pick up and they deliver within a 5-mile radius, or you can call them at 651-222-3263 or visit jselbys.com.
Well, you sold me one. Let's go order at J. Selby's tonight.
I'm hungry.
Minnesotans are hardy. We don't let snow or ice get in our way. We have places to go, so making sure your vehicle is in prime shape for winter driving is so important. Take your vehicle to Rudy Luther Toyota for all your service needs. I was just there. I got my Sienna's oil and filters replaced, and they did a complete safety check to make sure my Sienna was winter ready. And they service all makes and models of vehicles. Head to RudyLutherToyota.com to use their super easy Toyota service scheduler to set up your service appointment today. Rudy Luther Toyota on the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
This is Santita Jackson, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I couldn't be more excited about starting our days together, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. Central, on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Hey, Ogama, I've been hearing a lot about this term, climate justice. What is that?
Climate justice is recognizing that the negative impacts of climate change don't affect all people equally. It also means transitioning from a fossil fuel-based economy to a more sustainable future. MN350 is one of the groups that's pushing for this transition to protect our futures. You can even get involved too.
That's great, especially since I'm concerned about pipeline projects like Line 3. How can I help MN350?
Just find them on Facebook or visit mn350.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Clear overnight and very cold, getting down to 9 below zero. Then Friday, sunshine and a high of 10. If you're struggling to stay warm in your home this winter, it might be time for an insulation check. Call the professionals at Snap Construction today, 612-333-SNAP, or visit snapconstruction.com.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Well, it is Thursday and it's cold. It's freezing out there. Today it was really nice, Wendy. I took a walk, and then as the day progressed, it's gotten colder and colder. And now it's going to be really cold again. And I don't know what that has to do with Robert Lilligren, but Robert Lilligren is our guest right now, and he's on Thursdays. And we are always really pleased and happy to have Robert on and just have a conversation of what's happening and on the corridor and what's happening nationally too. There's a lot of things happening, really. Welcome, Robert.
Yeah, bonjour, Robert, Wendy, Ogama. So nice to be here. Always a pleasure. I thought you were going to blame me for the cold. That's where I thought you were going with that. Like it's my fault. Sorry.
I was looking on your Facebook, and you had some for your old blow in the air, and I don't know. I don't prepare for the show, Robert. You know that.
Right. Yeah, I know that. I put on my Facebook page. I saw there was a whole flock of about 24 robins hanging out right in my view where I sit and work for about 2 days, and I've never seen a flock like that before. They're all puffed out because they're freezing, so they look like the little chubbies, which was cute. But then people were sending me resources and stuff, so I learned a little about birds and how they survive the winter. And so
I always thought robins left to the south, but that isn't the case. A lot of them stay.
A lot of them do stay, and normally they're in pairs or whatever, but in the winter they flock together to find food. They I didn't see robins doing this, but other birds huddle together at night for warmth. And I've always kind of wondered how birds make it through these winters. I mean, it was, for folks that aren't in Minnesota, it was what, 16, 17 below, wind chills in the 30 below range. It's been cold.
I know. Oh, so what's been going on? I know there's things happening in Indian country. There's things happening on the corridor where you work. There's things happening in all my relations. I know there's some artists maybe we can talk about that won some award. I know you posted that. It's been going around Facebook. There's some people that like Rosie, won a few things. And what is that exactly going on there?
And Deanne Whitehawk as well. And this wasn't from our gallery. So the organization I work for, Native American Community Development Institute, we sort of steward this community vision of the American Indian Cultural Corridor along East Franklin, which is this very definable Native part of the city of Minneapolis. And so we have our biggest and most visible project is the All My Relations Arts Gallery, just off the Powell Grounds Coffee Shop, all within the building that we co-own, and so the galleries, I know you guys have all been there. It's just this small little gallery in this tiny little building on the cultural corridor on East Franklin, but it has become a major destination for contemporary Native arts in the Midwest. It's become an incubator for some incredible careers, Native artists that have gone on to be internationally famous. And one of those is Deanne Whitehawk, and she was our gallery director when we first located the gallery in the building that's in currently. An incredible visual artist in her own right, and she is being included in the upcoming Whitney Biennial uh, uh, exhibition called Quiet as It's Kept. It opens on April 16th, and that is huge for anybody, for any artist, but that she has such a direct connection to our little gallery is just
Yeah.
it's just really significant. And so we're so proud of her. She's so supportive of the gallery to this day, of the Native artists that she mentors there. She's a mentor of our current gallery director, Angela Two Stars, who's got is establishing quite a career as a public artist as
Yeah.
well. And then a bunch of All My Relations Arts alumni artists were selected as United States U.S. Arts Fellows. So
Yeah,
people like people like Andrea Carlson, Peter Williams, Marty Tubles, Rosie Seamus, as you brought up, Karen Hoffman. And again, these are artists that have relationships with our galleries, have showed at our gallery, and so they win a nice cash prize for being a fellow, and some really well-deserved recognition.
Yeah, that's exciting, and sorry to put you on the spot there on that, but, you're what you do and, like you were saying, All My Relations Gallery, I've gone there. Well, I mean, especially pre-COVID, you'd have a showing, what, every 3 months or
Yeah.
something like that? We'd have new artists in there every 3 months, and it's amazing. You go get a cup of coffee or go hang out and go in there and check it out.
Yeah. Yep, so we do the 4 big shows a year, and then there's always all kinds of related arts activities, artist talks, community arts events, and things like that that are associated with the shows. And so we have the 4 walls of the gallery that we consider sacred space. And
Mhm.
then a lot of it sort of goes beyond the walls of the gallery and out in community doing murals and arts activities. And typical of NACDI, our organization's efforts, everything that we do has a capacity building component. So it could be a capacity for artists, writers, youth, arts professionals, community. And so it's a place that has outsized influence when you consider how small it really is.
Well, I know Wendy and I went over there, and I know Ogama was in town during the George Floyd uprising after his murder, and you guys turned that place into a food place because there was a lot of outside influences were burning down grocery stores and everything, and you guys, All My Relations, were handing out food to the community, which we went in there. We wanted to go there and write a check, and we couldn't believe all the people that were working on this. So that's just a community partner big time, Robert.
You know, that I'm glad you lifted up that example because it was amazing. You know, we had the COVID was starting, and then George Floyd was murdered, and all hell broke loose here in Minneapolis. And you're right, food access was cut off to a lot of Native people, a lot of lower wealth people, brown people, right around our area. And uh, the first thing we did was took all the art out because we didn't know buildings were being burned down. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we took all the art out. I stored it in the corner of my place for several months, and then we had the space. And Angela Two Stars, our gallery director, just kind of opened it up to the community to do what needed to be done. And very quickly it evolved into a pop-up food pantry. We had food, household items, all kinds of things that were contributed. We quickly redirected some of our food access and other resources, dollars to support the effort because none of our other programming was really happening. We were able to hire a young Native professional as a food coordinator. She managed the workforce, the volunteers. They had a whole system set up within days. It was amazing. And for several weeks, maybe it was about 2 months total, that gallery looked like a grocery store. It looked like a grocery store. It smelled like a grocery store. It felt like a grocery store. We turned pretty much our whole building over to the protectors and the community response, our offices and stuff as well. But that was really an example of adaptability within our Native organization.
Wendy, you remember that when we went there and it was just like, it was unbelievable, you know, all those people.
I did. I mean, you could get anything from toothpaste, personal hygiene items, food, everything. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. And one of the things, and we took a little bit of heat, not much, but some criticism because we made it available to anyone. Anyone that showed up was eligible. We had a good system where people didn't crowd in. They went in small groups, and a lot of the folks in our community right around our building are new arrivals, asylees, East African Somali refugees and asylees, and we were feeding everybody. And we took a little bit of criticism, and we were just clear. We are here for the whole community. We're not going to pick and choose who gets food and who doesn't. And so we served both our native and non-native relatives.
It's crazy because in a weird way for me, it seems like it was a long time ago that this all went down, but it really isn't.
It's not. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it does seem like a long time ago, but it was, a good example. And I think it showed for us, and Ogama was down here, so I know she knows what was going on with the protectors, and the capacity that we were able to call on within our community was amazing. Folks were coming down from the tribes, folks were coming from all over the metro. It was a very organized effort to protect our native relatives and our non-native relatives and our precious native assets and our non-native neighbors' assets as well. And I think totally the effort took I think it was 500 volunteers that participated in the Franklin Avenue Protectors.
Yeah, and I know too, and again, during COVID, you guys, your group reached out and wrote some checks to some groups that really helped out. I know you AIM helped out a lot, American Indian Movement, and it was amazing that you were, saying to these groups, thank you so much. We know you weren't doing this for money. You wanted to save the neighborhood.
Right. Well, it's interesting, the city of Minneapolis itself stepped up with some safety funds, and our organization does a lot of business with the city, so we were kind of the pass through for that spontaneous contributions. Like you said, you and Wendy came to write a check, kind of managing that as well, and the generosity was just amazing. And then trying to, in the midst of all that, and for folks who weren't here in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, it was crazy. I mean, you really did not know if your building was going to survive the night, if people were going to survive. We had guards posted, the protectors posted on top of buildings, and we had very, very little damage, almost none on the cultural corridor, very little in the Native community. We lost a beloved institution in Migizi Communications, but in general, the Native community really protected our people and our buildings and our assets. And it taught us, we have this capacity. It showed us we have this capacity, but it showed the outside world too. The city more or less relied on the Native community to protect the cultural corridor and do the policing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we'll be right back. Robert, can you stick with us for another segment?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks.
Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
Stay with us.
Navigating COVID while protecting yourself can be difficult. Fortunately, there's a hotline you can call with any questions. The Department of Indian Work St. Paul partnered with the Minnesota Department of Health to open the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline. They provide information on vaccines, booster shots, and testing sites. Right now, booster shots are available to anyone over the age of 18 for those who are eligible. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline can also help with housing, food, medical, and educational support. If you or someone you know has questions about COVID-19, vaccinations, booster shots, or testing, please call 651-304-9986. Again, the number is 651-304-9986. The Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline is open for calls Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Call the Twin Cities American Indian COVID-19 hotline at 651-304-9986.
Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States, and 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected. Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf. Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy. As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired. Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and American Indian women in Minnesota are twice as likely to develop cervical cancer. Native Roots Radio is partnering with Minnesota's SAGE Breast and Cervical Cancer Program to talk about cervical cancer. It's a special broadcast live Sunday, January 30th at 6 p.m. on AM 950. Guests will include public health experts within the American Indian community who will share important information about cervical cancer in our Native communities. Listen live on Sunday at 6 p.m. or on Native Roots Radio's Facebook page.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
This portion of the show is brought to you by...
I'm awake. This is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations. See that, Robert? I went over your recording.
Oh, that's awesome. Wendy's human. That's good. Hey, before we get back to Robert Lilligren, Wendy, do you mind reading or giving you that real quick report on wolves again?
Absolutely. There's an action alert. Tomorrow, Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks will be holding an emergency hearing via Zoom regarding hunting quotas in regions bordering Yellowstone. To date, 22 Yellowstone wolves have been slaughtered, and we encourage Montana residents and Yellowstone tourists to register to comment before 8 a.m. tomorrow. The hearing will be held tomorrow at 1:30 MST. We need you to raise your voice for the wolves, and you can find this at hashtag #relistwolves. I also posted the link on our Facebook page, so you can just go on there and just do a Zoom action alert and send it in by 8 a.m. tomorrow.
Hey, thanks again, Wendy. That's
thank you.
So, hey, we're here with Robert Lilligren, who is the CEO of the Native American Community Development Institute here in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And we were kind of reliving the George Floyd thing. And I don't know if we can maybe go into a little bit of that again. It was amazing that all these gas stations, well, we live in St. Paul.
Sure.
And we're good, I don't know, 9-10 minutes away from where it happened. And we were getting gas stations and people with their license plates covered, cruising in the neighborhood, gas stations burned down a long ways away from outside people. And I always want to bring that up again when we're talking about this, because why would we burn our own pharmacy down?
Right.
Why would we do these things? And so I just want to bring that portion up, my truth about that, because that was ridiculous. The way a lot of the news was reporting us burning our own place down.
Right. And you saw that a lot on social media too. People are like, oh, why are you burning your own communities down? And then as people were arrested, as prosecutions happened, you saw we weren't. It was people coming from the outside, some just to cause trouble, some I think who were a lot more had a lot more evil intentions. The folks who just want to bring down the whole government, and they just wanted to light a match on a very, very hot situation. I mean, literally light a match. And so we're still building. We're still left with the vacant lots and half burned out buildings, while those folks are long gone.
Right. Well, and it also with that in the January 6th, all those cats going to Washington. I mean, it was almost the same clientele that was coming into our neighborhoods that went to
Very, yeah,
Washington.
very similar. Yeah, and all these dark vans without license plates. I mean, this was for real, and people would post pictures from their neighborhood, slightly more outlying neighborhoods, where they would see out of state cars park and people get out of the cars and get into these
Yeah.
black vans with no license. I mean, this was going on all around us. People were finding sort of a uh, impromptu constructed bomb, like gasoline soaked wood and rags in their alleys, and getting rid of them, disposing of them. Cars filled with accelerants and things that were preset in areas. I mean, it was crazy.
Well, the umbrella man that was wearing all black was finally found, and that video is insane because he's the one who really started that liquor
Started it.
store, going in there and breaking the windows and then walking away, and everyone going, "What the heck's going on?" One thing I want to bring up too with our community, what really, really, really made me proud was Little Earth and how they
Oh yeah.
their area. I mean, I was watching live video. Wendy and I were watching live video of this from different people going Facebook Live, and it was amazing what they did to thwart off bad doers, bad actors.
Right. Yep, those Little Earth protectors were serious about preserving Little Earth. They weren't going to let anything happen to it, and they were doing crazy, relocating street barriers and things to block off the streets. A pretty major street that goes through Little Earth, Cedar Avenue, and they had that blocked off. They were out overnight every night, feeding people. Of course, they all the protectors. There was a strong sense of prayer and ceremony as well, which was beautiful to behold fires burning. But those Little Earth guys, man, they got fired on by the National Guard, and there had been some discussion about posting National Guard near Little Earth. It's a federally funded housing project, so there's some interest by the government in preserving it as well. But then the National Guard couldn't tell sort of who was a good guy and who was a bad guy, and I think they mistook Little Earth for some protesters, and so they marched on them, fired on them. I was watching live when that happened, and I had one phone with our lieutenant governor on the
Right.
line, and one phone with Jolene Jones, who's a big leader in Little Earth and the Protectors, and just trying to get them to stop, being fired on. Nobody got hurt, or at least not too bad. Some people actually did get hurt, and it's sad, but it was educational for law enforcement, right? They got to see this is what it looks like when Native people step forward and protect our relatives, and it might not look like what you're used to, but it was certainly effective.
Exactly. I'm wondering too, we're still here. I want to let everyone know, but could you tell our people maybe in Chicago and Madison and Milwaukee where Little Earth is and what it is real quick?
Yeah, Little Earth is this amazing place. And actually, I was just explaining to this someone earlier today who asked me if it was a reservation, because a lot of people think it is a reservation, but it is the soul. It's right in the heart of the Native community. Actually, it is in some ways the heart of the Native community because it's maintained this strong residential presence just about 4 blocks south of the American Indian Cultural Corridor. And it's the sole example in this country of an urban project-based Section 8 housing development that is allowed to grant Native preference in their renting. So consequently, 98% of the residents there are Native. It's 217, something like that, units, all different sizes. It's got sort of an official population, names on leases of about 700 people, but you know how our families are, how we need to provide shelter for some of our relatives at any given day. So I would say there's probably an unofficial population of between 1 and 2,000 people on any given day. And it is unique. It is something. and because it's it's the most densely populated native population of any census tract in the country. And because it's so dense there, then other relatives want to live near their other organizations. And so it really is the sort of hub and heart of the Native community.
Well, I just got to say this. We only got like a minute 20. One thing I want to say is that it's a big voting block, so watch out.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I prepared to talk for, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about it. But the threat to voting rights, especially Native voting rights that's going on right now, is despicable. The Native American Voting Rights Act was part of the John Lewis Act that didn't pass. And in those big states, Arizona, North Dakota, where the Native votes determine elections, they're really threatened.
Exactly. We'll talk about that next week. I really appreciate our conversation is really organic and goes different places, and I think kind of reminiscent about George Floyd murder and what went down in our community, and letting our relatives and their new listeners across Turtle Island hear really what happened. I appreciate that.
Me too. Thanks for the opportunity. With the trial of the other 3 officers starting, it just does seem to kind of bring that trauma back to the surface.
It sure does. I'd like to end with these thoughts. If you're listening to the show, you are part of the resistance. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office. We're still here. We are the 7th generation.
Free Leonard Peltier. Stop line 3. Please get vaccinated and boosted.
Hi, everyone. AM 950 is grateful to the listeners who stepped up in the last year and helped support